In this lesson, we're going to do two things. One of them is we're going to draw one of the Sandmen from Star Wars, and we're using that as an example of shading and texture. So here's a ribbon, and I want to go through and I want to shade a ribbon. Okay, so let's say that the light direction on this ribbon is this way. So here's where the light would end, and perhaps here's where the light would begin. If the light is coming this way, it might take until right there. So let's say that the direction of the light is coming down, and we're looking for where does it begin on this surface and where does it end on this surface. And I think that that's probably my spot. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the dark and the light. Okay, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to darken the edge of the shadow. And here I'll darken the edge of the shadow. And that creates my feeling of reflected light. And if I wanted to, I could put a little bit of shadow accent there. And now what I need to do is I want to turn up towards the light. This very gentle, gradual transition of halftone into light. And here I want to turn down towards the light. And you end up with a convincing ribbon, a dimensional convincing ribbon. So let's use this idea, because the sand people, let's get a portrait of a sand person going here. So we've got the head shape, and we'll bring in the square that we like to use, and then that gives us the jaw. Okay, and middle of the head is where we find the eyes, and there are ears. The ears go between the nose and the eye. Okay. Now here we have a basic little portrait that we can start to design on top of. Now let's take these ribbons and start to wrap this thing with ribbons. So let's say I've got a ribbon that I'm going to wrap around his head in this direction. And notice the ribbon wraps around his head in a real cross contour line. And let's wrap one this way. And it's going to pass over the ear. So right now we start to look like a World War II guy with all these bandages on his head. And I'll pass one this way. And again, it's wrapping around. You have to think of this ribbon as wrapping around, and it's pulling the ear in, and kind of this one here would be turning up and over the ear. Okay. And we might have an underside one that would be coming down this way, and they seem to end right about there. And this could be another one going up and around. And there's this exercise that we did earlier on where we took 2 points and we connected them with a curve. We connected them with a curve. And we connected them with a curve. And those 2 points connected with a curve, if you think of a face as living in here with these 2 points connected with curves, and you see the shape of these lines, the way that these lines pass over and around the volume of the head that we're building. So that becomes that becomes what we're up to. The nose and the Sandman is like they're these sand people, they're like these pieces of leather that are ribboning around, and it's a triangle bit of leather that ribbons around and sticks like that. And then inside of there they have this kind of squared off, kind of circle squared off projection, and it's got those things in the front of it. And the ribbons pass between the eyes, which are cylinders. So I'm just going to draw these cylinders for the eyes, and I'm turning them a little bit to the left, and the cylinders have dark inside them. Okay. And then all of this stuff is wrapped. And I'm just passing ribbons around in every direction that I can possibly manage. Notice what I've done right here, the overlapping ribbons like that. So that really gives an edge detail. It gives us a nice shape on the edge. And I'm going to take one ribbon and wrap it like this. Okay, and then they wear these robes which come down like this, and they have these little guys sticking up. Okay, now let's go through and see how we can shade this. So we know how we shade ribbons. We find the angle of the light and we shade accordingly. And here's, if we're working with a sphere, if the light was coming from this direction, and then the sphere would have an ellipse showing the direction of the light. So that's the direction of the light. So if we have this guy, and if we think of the head as being somewhat spherical, if we take a line and we pass, like I'm going to pass the ellipse, like the ellipse, only I'm going to be sensitive to the shape of the contour that it's passing as it goes in that same direction. It comes over this way and in and under. And everything on this side, I want to put in shadow to begin with. Okay, and now I'm going to go, and you see this ribbon, now I'm going to start to get more texture and detail. You see this ribbon has a side to it. I'm giving it some thickness, and I'm going to darken right on the edge of the shadow here. And then I'm going to gently transition over to the light. Okay, again, here's a ribbon in here, and it is turning out of the shadow from over here, gently transitioning over to the light. Here's a shadow edge right there, and it is also going to gently transition over to the light. It's just a matter of really careful, slow, kind of painstaking mark making. Here's an edge, a shadow detail. We have these little guys in here. And you see this part of the ribbon, this part over here, we could turn from over there back towards the light too. this is a cylinder, the light's coming this way, so the cylinder has a dark side, and then it has reflected light also. And in this instance, actually we're going to have, because the light's coming that way, so this part of the cylinder will be lit. The inside on that side will have a little bit of light on it. There's the angle of the shadow, and over in there it would be reflected light. Turning over to the light, this one has a little edge, it's going to catch the light. Over in here, we'll just make a dark shadow edge right there, and then turn over to the light. Okay, and now this piece, the light's coming this way, this piece of leather, all of this here is in shadow, but when I get to there, it starts to become light, and this is darker. Over to the light. And this would be in here is all in cast shadow. This is all in dark in here. And the little mouthpiece in here is probably made of aluminum, and it would work like this. You would have aluminum is a highly reflective surface, and so on really reflective surfaces, what happens is the reflected light stays really, really light. The highlights stay really light, and then things like, you see little shapes of things in there that are being reflected from the world that it lives in. And I think that's about how far I want to take this one.